In colonial North Carolina, tensions flared between native peoples and English settlers. Despite having an alliance, war seemed on the horizon for the Tuscarora and English. Even with efforts from English and native diplomats alike, relations continued to worsen. Small-scale violence would break out. Kidnapping and raids would continually occur between the two groups. Alan Galley, author of The Indian Slave Trade, The Rise of the English Empire in the American South, states, in a letter written 7 months before the war's outbreak, Governor Spotswood of Virginia warned Governor Edward Hyde of North Carolina about the potential threat of whites settling too close to Indians. Spotswood believed that the natives had just cause for complaint of those, quote, daily trespassing upon them. He found perfectly excusable the retaliation, since your people have been the first aggressors by ceding without right on lands of which the Indians had first possession. The Tuscarora War put long-standing peace at risk, as well as the freedom of Native Americans who would be sold into slavery upon capture. Also at stake were issues regarding territorial control and trade disputes that would impact neighboring groups as well. You might have heard at some point that a significant amount of Native Americans actually sided with the English. From a modern perspective, this may seem odd. Why would you support the side that's actively conquering more and more of the continent you live on? However, this isn't how Native groups viewed things. They didn't view themselves as one collective race that must unite to defend against the English. Instead, they viewed themselves as members of their respective tribes, and many of these tribes had grievances against the Tuscarora. The Tuscarora were undoubtedly the strongest Native American tribe in the area, and had been involved in many different raids and disputes against other tribes. As was tradition, those captured during raids had one of three things happen to them. The first option was they were killed. The second was they were adopted into the tribe, and it was like they were always part of it. The third was that they were given an other status, and it was as if they weren't human. They couldn't even have names. The status wasn't inheritable, and they could have kids. They could even eventually be adopted into the tribe. Now, of course, the Tuscarora had been doing this for a long time against other tribes, but as interaction with the English increased, this practice began to change. Instead of killing captured or making them others, they sold them into slavery to the English. Naturally, this upset many native groups over time, which is why they eventually sided with the English against the Tuscarora.
On September 16, 1711, John Lawson, a naturalist and surveyor, was killed by the Tuscarora. Lawson was stuck with pine splinters and then burned. This is believed to have occurred after Lawson and his companion Graffenreid were captured while on an expedition. Tensions would heighten as on the 23rd of September, the Tuscarora raided multiple settlements near Bath, resulting in the death of 130 people. In response, North Carolina Governor Edward Hyde would call for a draft. War had begun. The response to Hyde's draft was not sufficient for the force that was needed, largely due to the overwhelming Quaker population in the area. Quakers opposed violence and therefore would not fight in the war. For this reason, it became necessary for Hyde to reach out for help. He reached out to South Carolina for reinforcements. Colonel Barnwell of South Carolina brought a group of reinforcements that was mainly made up of Native Americans from other tribes. Barnwell and his men were able to force the Tuscarora to retreat to a fort. Though this had been a victory, it did not last. With the North Carolina settlements already being weakened from yellow fever, the Tuscarora attacked again the following summer. Reinforcements from South Carolina arrived again to assist. This group consisted of Colonel Moore and troops, once again mainly Native Americans. This time, the reinforcements killed 900 Tuscarora people and left them defeated.
The Tuscarora War was the bloodiest war per capita in North Carolina's history, with the deaths of 200 European men and 1,000 Native Americans. The tension and violence, stemming from the implications of the slave trade, eventually led to the changes within slavery. Shifting from an export-based system of Native Americans, the slave trade became an import-based system, transporting Africans to the colonies for labor. Within the colonies, the religious factions united under a shared faith and beliefs, and the government allowed for expansion of the colonists' territorial control, as well as issuance of paper money. Following the Tuscarora War, several impacts, both lasting and temporary, were seen. During the following war, temporary united religious groups were seen. For example, during the war, though the Quakers openly opposed violence, they actually helped supply provisions for those fighting. The tensions created by the war led to the absorption of the Tuscarora into the Iroquois Confederation and the slow decline of Tuscarora language and culture. Both North and South Carolina became royal colonies shortly after the conflicts.